Hi, Pastor Nathan Decker with your Better Together devotion for today. And today I wanted to continue the discussion we began yesterday about stewardship. A phrase and a word that we often don't use because it's a word that we've come to be afraid of because it's talking about things like money and time. But again, like I said yesterday, one of the things that we have to realize theologically is that when we talk about stewardship, we're talking about the ways that God trusts us with time, with resources, with life, and yes, even with money in our wallets. But today I want to focus specifically on what's outside there. Because one of the things that we rarely talk about or understand when it comes to stewardship is that stewardship begins in the beginning. That is, literally in the book of Genesis, that's where the very root of stewardship comes from. Because in the beginning, when God went about creating the heavens and the earth, and he did all these marvelous, wonderful things, the birds in the air, the fish in the sea, the trees and the beautiful mountains and the roaring oceans, all of this was given to us. Now, the scriptures are kind of funny about how it's worded because it says, that you are to subdue. Some translations will read that. Or you are to be stewards of this. The idea here really, though, is the word in Hebrew that's used there is the same word that's used for the relationship between Adam and Eve. And the idea here is that we are to trust and serve one another in our relationships. And one of those relationships that we have that we're called to trust and to serve is our relationship with nature, with all of creation itself. Now, most of theology and most of the ways that we have tried to do this historically, we have seen nature as something to subdue, something to take hold of and control. We cut back the weeds and we mow down the trees in the forest that we don't want. The reality is that we're really called to find our relationship with creation. And we're called to be good stewards. As one of my friends, Pat Watkins, said, we're called to take care of the garden. We still live within the garden. It's not the Garden of Eden that we once had, without the thorns and as the animals of our friends and everything like that, but we're still in the garden. Earth is this wonderful blue marble floating through space that is the Garden of Eden that God gave us. We are living in the garden, and God called us to take care of it. Now, this isn't political. This isn't some strange new understanding. This is within the Scriptures itself because God gave to us this assignment that we're called to take care, just as we take care of our relationship with one another, just as we strive to have a relationship with God, love neighbor, we're also called to take care of the garden, to seek to be good stewards of the gifts that God has given us. That means that we ought to try, as hard as we can, to conserve and care for the world around us, and strive to make it better than the way we found it. Because oftentimes we find places that we have not cared for the garden. And we should pick up that trash. We should strive to recycle. We should strive to seek ways of not polluting. It's very simple when you think about it from this wonderful way that if we understand this to be the garden, if we understand this to be the place where we live as God's assignment to us while we walk this earth, we're called to bring heaven on earth and make this garden more like the Garden of Heaven, less like the garden of consumption and abuse. We're called to love one another, to love God, but equally, we're called to take care of this garden. So go and be better together. Strive to cultivate a relationship not just with one another, but also with creation itself. We're better when we're together. Amen.